show.
A stunning new report shows half of teachers and parents feel students have significantly fallen behind due to COVID-19 school closures. I'm joined now by Trenton Goebel, and he's VP of K-12 Strategies for Canvas, which is one of the major remote learning providers in the U.S. while our kids have been at home. Good morning, Trenton.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. So we want to talk first about our students and the last school year, because our parents and teachers now might see that once they go back, that their students are overwhelmingly behind now that they're heading back to the classroom for the first time. So what insight do you have into being one of the major providers for online school platforms? What has your company seen with our kids who've been kind of stuck in this little remote learning experience?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is teachers and students have had a really challenging last 18 months. I think there's a lot of anxiety as folks are thinking about heading back to school, especially as it comes to learning loss. And so as kids are going back to school, as teachers and school administrators are thinking about the school year, they're really dialing into how do we actually address student need as they come back to school.
Okay, and so what do we even know the extent of how far behind our kids are, and what do they need?
You know, I think it's going to be really important as we get back into the swing of things that we remember that students are individuals, and that some kids may have fallen behind during the time of COVID, and other kids, you know, are going to be right on track. And we also have kids who may have done really well during COVID, during remote learning. And so the key is going to be not necessarily trying to assume that every student is behind, but rather making sure that we have ways that we're looking at identifying where kids are at as quickly as possible so that we can begin to address that learning loss.
And has Canvas been able to kind of pull teachers, pull educators, pull families and students to get a better understanding of how they're feeling about preparedness for the new school year?
Yeah, we actually did a survey, a nationwide survey of parents and teachers recently, and it was really interesting to see where parents' concerns are. And, you know, the thing that was most concerning to parents was just the lack of connection and engagement that their students had during COVID. And so as they're coming back, the things that were right at the top of the list that both parents and teachers were dialed into was just how important student and teacher relationships are, making sure that we're creating opportunities to engage with students. Those were things that were really missed. And actually at the very bottom of this survey was the kind of high stakes standardized tests. So there's a lot more interest in looking at the more formative in-class assessment that's going to become critical as teachers get back together with students. We're going to need teachers in the classroom being able to assess and identify where their kids are at, so they can begin to address individual student need.
And so when kids with that face-to-face environment, so being in person is going to be the key, is what you're saying, to getting our kids back on track. Does this mean that we're going to have to accelerate the next school year? I mean, a lot of these kids are being shoved off into the next grade, whether they're ready or not. So what does the next school year look like?
Yeah, you know, as a former teacher and principal, you know, I would say the same thing to parents any year going back. Everybody worries about like a summer loss, and obviously coupling a summer loss with, you know, the last school year, people are certainly worried. I think the thing that's going to be really important to remember is kids are going through another transition, another stressful transition, going from remote learning to a face-to-face environment. And the thing that's going to matter most is that we get kids back into school in a place where they're feeling safe, right? Making that transition has to take priority. And then remembering that we have, a school year is a long time to get students caught up. So don't make any assumptions. Get our kids back into school where they're feeling connected again, feeling safe, back in the groove, and then really start to begin focusing on individual student needs.
All right, so it's all about individual student needs. And I think it's also, I mean, you'll know this, as you just mentioned, you're a former principal, you'll know this, our kids are resilient. So we have to give them more credit, I think, than a lot of us. You see scary numbers, and you go, but really, like, our kids are going to be resilient. They're going to be good.
Yeah, and I also think it's important for parents to remember that the kids pick up on the adult anxiety around them. And so it's super important for parents as we enter this school year to enter it with a positive attitude, reinforce the excitement that students are feeling. Also, validate the anxiety that kids might be feeling as well. Talk to your kids, listen to them, and be open to being able to address their concerns, and make sure we kind of keep ours in the background.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We certainly appreciate it. You give us some insight into how American children are feeling as we head into the new school year. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be right back. So stay with us.